The streets of Baton Rouge stretched ahead, quiet and dim under the flickering glow of streetlights. Naomi Brooks, a 38-year-old state prosecutor, drove her sleek black Lexus home after a grueling day in court. Her mind buzzed with legal strategies, pending cases, and the endless fight for justice she had sworn to uphold. The phone in her cup holder vibrated. Another email, most likely regarding her meeting with the Attorney General's office the next morning. She sighed, exhaustion sinking into her bones, but she kept her focus on the road, her fingers steady on the wheel. Then red and blue lights exploded behind her, flashing in her rearview mirror like a siren called dread. Naomi's heart clenched. She wasn't speeding. She hadn't run a light. What now? She exhaled slowly, forcing her pulse to steady. She knew the drill. Hands on the wheel, no sudden movements, interior lights on. As a black woman, she had been taught this routine early, but as a legal professional, she also knew how quickly things could spiral when someone in uniform decided they wanted control. A police cruiser rolled up behind her. The driver's door opened, and out stepped Officer Daniel Sloan Young, broad-shouldered, his walk carrying an air of force authority. His face was unreadable as he approached, flashlight flicking over her face, her briefcase on the passenger seat, the pristine navy blue pantsuit she was still wearing from court. License and registration, he said, his tone clipped, detached. Naomi moved slowly, reaching for her wallet inside her bag. "May I ask why I'm being stopped, officer?" No response. Sloan stared at her ID longer than necessary before finally speaking. Failed to signal that last turn. Naomi suppressed a sigh. Really? She had signaled twice out of habit, but she knew better than to argue at least. Not yet. "I see," she said evenly. "Well, I'm actually aware you headed tonight." He interrupted. Her grip on the wheel tightened. "Home." His flashlight lingered over her interior again, hovering over the briefcase like he was looking for something, an excuse, a justification. "Step out of the vehicle," he ordered. Naomi blinked. "Excuse me?" "I said step out of the car." A cold sensation spread through her chest. This wasn't about a traffic violation. He wasn't listening. He had already decided who she was. She had two choices, comply or escalate. She already knew how the second option ended. With a deep breath, she unlocked the door and stepped out. The pavement was cool beneath her heels as she kept her hands visible, her posture straight. Sloan took a half step back, one hand hovering near his holster. "There's no need for that," Naomi said, keeping her voice controlled. His jaw clenched. "Turn around." Hands on the roof of the car. Naomi's pulse pounded in her ears. "Officer, I have no weapons. I've committed no crime. You're refusing to comply?" His voice carried an edge, a challenge. "I'm asking for a valid reason," she countered. "Failing to signal does not warrant a search." Sloan smirked, like he had been waiting for this. "You're being uncooperative." That single word sent a ripple of unease through her. Naomi had heard it too many times in courtrooms, in police reports, in cases where traffic stops became arrests, where compliance was never enough, where black men and women were labeled as threats for simply questioning their treatment. "I'd like to speak with your sergeant," she said firmly. That's when everything shifted, before she could register it. His hand clamped down on her arm. "Hey!" she snapped, jerking back. Out of line, he muttered, spinning her around. Pain shot up her shoulder as he wrenched her arm behind her back. "You can't do this," she gasped. "You're resisting arrest." His voice was flat, emotionless, like this was just another routine stop. For what? She demanded, but he didn't answer because he didn't have to. The cold metal of handcuffs snapped around her wrists. The sharp bite of steel cut into her skin. The world around her blurred. This wasn't happening. Not to her. Not to a state prosecutor who had spent her career fighting against this exact abuse of power. And yet, here she was. Naomi squeezed her eyes shut, forcing down the fury boiling inside her. Not here. Not now. Sloan gripped her arm, steering her toward his squad car. "Where are you taking me?" she demanded. "You'll find out soon enough," he said, shoving her forward. The door slammed shut behind her. As the car pulled away, Naomi sat rigid, her breathing slow and measured. Her wrists ached from the cuffs. but she ignored the pain. Up front, Sloan gripped the wheel with one hand, the other resting near his radio. Naomi's voice cut through the silence. You know this is a mistake. He didn't respond. You had no probable cause. No reason to escalate. You realize that, right? Still, nothing. Naomi leaned forward slightly, her voice lowering to something dangerous. When we get to the station, I want my phone call. Sloan smirked, glancing at her through the rearview mirror. Yeah, he said. Who you calling? Your boyfriend. Naomi didn't blink. The Attorney General. The smirk vanished. For the first time, Sloan hesitated. Just for a second. Then, like flipping a switch, he recovered. Nice try, he muttered. You can tell that to booking. Naomi exhaled slowly, leaning back against the seat. Let him believe what he wanted. Because everything was about to change. The squad car rolled into the precinct parking lot, its tires crunching against the worn asphalt. The building loomed ahead, bathed in artificial light, its windows casting harsh, fluorescent glows into the night. Sloan stepped out first, slamming his door before yanking hers open with just a little too much force. His hand clamped around her arm, pulling her out with a grip meant to make a statement. Naomi didn't resist. She walked ahead, her heels clicking against the pavement, her posture straight, her head high. Let them all see. Inside, the police station buzzed with muted conversations and ringing phones. The booking desk was manned by a stocky officer in his mid-50s, his salt and pepper mustache twitching as he looked up from his paperwork. Sergeant Thomas Whitaker, a veteran cop who had seen it all. Whitaker barely glanced at them as he spoke. What you got, Sloan? Sloan straightened his stance, caught her driving reckless. Wouldn't cooperate. Naomi let out a sharp breath, almost a laugh. Sergeant Whitaker finally looked at her. His eyes flicked from her tailored pantsuit to her briefcase, still tucked under Sloan's arm. Then his gaze locked on her face. And that's when it happened. Recognition. Whitaker's expression shifted instantly. His back straightened, his mustache twitched, his eyes widened. Way to damn minute, he muttered. Naomi tilted her head slightly, a trace of a smirk forming at the edges of her lips. Naomi Brooks, she said evenly, state attorney. Silence. A thick, awkward silence. Whitaker's face paled. His gaze darted between Naomi and Sloan. Then, just like that, he was moving. Sloan, he barked, get those cuffs off her. Now. Sloan frowned. Sir, I said now. Sloan hesitated, his fingers twitching near his belt. Jesus Christ. Whitaker snapped, shoving past him and unlocking the cuffs himself. Naomi rolled her shoulders as the metal fell away, rubbing her wrists where they had dug into her skin. The room was dead quiet. Whitaker turned on Sloan, his voice low and sharp. Do you have any idea who you just arrested? Sloan stiffened. She refused to comply. Whitaker's expression darkened. She's the damn prosecutor overseeing police misconduct cases for the entire state. The color drained from Sloan's face. Naomi took her time. She reached into her bag, the one Sloan had rifled through like she was some suspect, and pulled out a sleek black business card. She placed it gently on the booking desk. Sloan swallowed hard. For the first time all night, he looked unsure. Naomi met his eyes, her voice calm but razor sharp. You just made the worst mistake of your career. Whitaker turned back to Naomi, his tone different now. Careful, respectful. Miss Brooks, I sincerely apologize. This is a misunderstanding. Naomi's gaze didn't waver. No, Sergeant, this is a pattern. Whitaker exhaled slowly, pressing his fingers to his forehead. Is there anything I can do? He asked quietly. Naomi smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Yes, she said. I like my phone call. The sergeant's office was dimly lit, the overhead light casting long shadows over the desk cluttered with paperwork. Naomi picked up the phone, her fingers steady as she dialed. It rang twice before a familiar voice answered. Jonathan Pierce, Louisiana's Attorney General. Jonathan, Naomi said smoothly. It's me. There was a pause, then a shift in his tone. Sharp, alert. Naomi? His voice was edged with concern. What's going on? She glanced toward the one-way glass, where she knew Whitaker and Sloan were standing, watching, waiting. "I was just arrested," she said. Silence. Then measured fury. "Where?" She gave him the address. "I'm on my way," he said. Click. Naomi set the phone down gently, smoothing the wrinkles from her suit as she stood. Whitaker cleared his throat. "Miss Brooks, I—" Naomi held up a hand. "Don't." His mouth shut. A thick, uncomfortable tension filled the room. 20 minutes later, the station doors burst open. Jonathan Pierce walked in like a storm. Tall, commanding, a man who never wasted words. Behind him, 2 state investigators. The room froze. Pierce's eyes landed on Naomi. "Are you all right?" Naomi nodded once. "I will be." Pierce turned to Whitaker, his voice cold. "Sergeant, let's talk about how one of your officers just arrested my state prosecutor on a fabricated charge." Whitaker visibly swallowed. "Sir, Pierce cut him off. "Not here. In your office. Now." Whitaker rushed ahead, leading them inside. Sloan still stood near the desk. For the first time all night, he looked small. Naomi walked up beside him, close enough that her voice was only for him. "You thought I was just some woman you could push around," she said quietly. "You thought my voice wouldn't matter." Sloan didn't respond, because there was nothing left to say. But Naomi wasn't done. "I handle cases like this every day, Officer Sloan," she said, voice soft but lethal. "You know what happens next." His throat bobbed. "Your body cam footage will be reviewed. Your record will be pulled." Sloan's breathing hitched. "And when the world sees what you did tonight," she exhaled slowly, letting the weight of her words settle, "you won't just be another cop with a badge." Her voice dropped lower. "You'll be a liability." Sloan said nothing, because he already knew she was right. Moments later, the door to the sergeant's office flew open. Pierce stepped out first, his expression set like stone. "Naomi," he said, "we pressing charges." Sloan's breath caught. And just like that, his career was over. The police station buzzed with an undercurrent of tension as Naomi stood tall, her presence now a force of reckoning. The weight of her title had settled in, sending shockwaves through the officers who had once watched in detached indifference. Now, their gazes were a mix of unease and anticipation. They knew what was coming. Officer Daniel Sloan stood motionless, his face pale, his jaw clenched so tightly it might shatter. The bravado, the misplaced confidence he had carried through this entire ordeal, had vanished. Sergeant Whitaker was stiff, his hands braced on his desk, as if physically holding himself together. His gaze flicked from Pierce to Naomi, searching for a way out, a lifeline to salvage his precinct from the incoming storm. Jonathan Pierce, Louisiana's Attorney General, took a slow step forward, his words deliberate. "Officer Sloan," he said, his voice sharp, slicing through the thick silence. "Turn your badge and your gun." The room froze. Sloan's mouth opened, then shut. "Sir," Whitaker interjected, voice taut with desperation. "Surely we can—" Pierce's head snapped toward him. "Surely what, Sergeant? Cover it up? Sweep it under the rug." His voice dropped, edged with danger. "Not this time." Whitaker looked like he wanted to protest, to insist that this was all a misunderstanding, but he knew better. Sloan, however, still didn't get it. "You can't be serious," Sloan muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. She failed to signal. She refused to comply. Naomi turned to him then, her expression unreadable. "Tell me something, Officer Sloan," she said, tilting her head slightly. "If I were a white woman in a business suit, driving a Lexus, would you pull me out of my car and throw me in handcuffs for a traffic signal?" Sloan's jaw twitched. "You resisted." "No. I asked questions." Her voice was steady, controlled. "And that was enough for you to escalate." A thick silence swallowed the room. Sloan's hands clenched at his sides, his body vibrating with energy that had nowhere to go. Pierce stepped in, his tone ice cold. "Officer Sloan, your body cam footage has been flagged for review. Given what we already know, you'll be placed under investigation for misconduct. You're done here." Sloan took a slow, rattling breath, his knuckles going white. I want my union, Rep, he said finally. Pierce smiled. Oh, you'll get one. His voice dipped lower. But that won't save you. Whitaker pinched the bridge of his nose, letting out a slow exhale before nodding toward another officer. Take his badge. The station was silent as the process unfolded. Sloan pulled his badge from his chest and placed it on the desk, the sound echoing in the room like a final, resounding failure. Next came the gun. He unholstered it, his hands visibly shaking as he set it down beside his badge. His authority was gone. Naomi watched it all, saying nothing. But she wasn't finished. Not yet. The next morning, Naomi woke up to her phone, buzzing nonstop. News outlets, civil rights groups, colleagues. The world had already caught wind of what had happened. By noon, the body cam footage was released. It played everywhere. On the local news, on national networks, online where it spread like wildfire. People saw everything. The moment Sloane's demeanor changed the second he saw her face. How he ignored her credentials. How he dismissed her rights. How he escalated without cause. And people were angry. Protests erupted outside the Baton Rouge Police Department. The mayor's office was flooded with calls, demanding justice. Sloane was placed on indefinite suspension pending the investigation. But Naomi knew what would happen next. They would say he was just one bad officer. They would call it a one-time mistake. They always did. She had spent years in courtrooms proving otherwise. That night, she stood in front of cameras, facing a crowd of journalists. She looked straight into the lens. This isn't about me, she said, her voice strong. It's about what happens when power is abused. It's about the people who don't have an attorney general on speed dial. The people who don't make the news. The people who never got a chance to fight back. Flashes from cameras lit up the night. Journalists scribbled furiously. But Naomi wasn't done. We keep talking about bad apples, but we never talk about the trees that grow them. A hush settled over the crowd. This stops when we start holding law enforcement truly accountable. When we change the system that allows this to happen, over and over again. She let the weight of her words sink in before delivering the final blow. I was lucky, but I shouldn't have had to be. The press conference ended. But the conversation had only just begun. That night, Naomi sat alone in her office, staring out over the city she had spent years fighting for. She had won cases. She had fought for justice in the courtroom. But maybe, just maybe, this was a bigger fight. Because this was just the beginning.